on Zoom. The Zoom link is top of the agenda. We have a quorum. The agenda is properly posted, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. With that, then, first up is public appearances, public's opportunity to speak on any subject. If you are from the public, we just ask that you share your name, your address, your municipality, and hold your comments to no more than 3 minutes in case we have a lot of folks who would like to speak. With that, we do have a submittal form for wish to speak. Mark Smouse, regarding library costs, please.
I'm going to leave as soon as I get done with this, so I'm not trying to be rude. I've got a 7 o'clock appointment, so I can't stay. So
Make sure you turn on, get mic'd up there so we can.
Okay, I'm mic'd up. So you have to excuse me soon after this because I have another appointment at 7. I can't stay. I was out in the neighborhood this week, and there was actually a neighborhood watch meeting over off Taylor Street. And so I was able to sit down and talk to a variety of people, and we were talking about the library because all the signs went up. And so it was the thing that everybody was talking about. And I started talking about the costs, and several people brought up the fundraising that's going on. And from what I hear, it's going pretty successful. So what they asked me to do, they asked me to, Mark, put on tape what the actual costs are so people can see it. And so I'm going to put on tape tonight after FOIAing some information from the village. I'm just going to go through this because I think this library, to get us to this point, has cost us a lot of money. And I don't think people realize, I know there's a lot of effort that's gone in, there's a lot of passion in this project, and I understand what library would mean to the community. But there's also costs and taxpayers that I believe the board is beholden to. So I'm going to start. I went back to 2019. The first entry is 4/19 of 22, the Sweeney Group, $12,500 to raise money for the library. This is not this library. This was the other library at the original location that was being looked at. 9/6, Sweeney Group, $12,500. We're at $25,000 trying to raise money for a library that has been completely abandoned now. I have to state the taxpayers only paid $15,000 of that because Friends of the Library did pick up $10,000 of that. Then we had a library master plan. If you look at the FAQs from the library site, Melissa Radcliffe even stated, this is the perfect site. It's not the site where we're at today. It was the other site. And they thought it was such a perfect site that in 2023, FGM Architects on March 7th, billed to the village $5,263.50. 3/21, FGM Architects, $5,263.50. 5/2, FGM Architects, $5,263.50. And there are 4 more, totaling $32,065.80 of taxpayer money that is now laid to waste because that library's not even being considered anymore. Actual taxpayer money between the Sweeney Group and the FGM Architects at this point, we're up to $47,000. And we're not even talking about that anymore. We've invested that money, but it's not an investment, it's wasted. We get to 12/3/24. Sweeney Group, 12/3, $4,000, 12/17, $4,000. We have the Architectural Engineering Group went in to take a look at the Learning Library, $19,300. We haven't paid it all yet, but that's the bill. Mueller Communications, we haven't paid all that yet either. And Mueller Communications, we still owe, let's see, sorry, you have to forgive me. Well, we basically, the Sweeney Group, we still owe $8,000. We have 2 more payments due. Phase 1 of Mueller was $12,090. Phase 2, this is to communicate the library to the public, $32,488. Net still due to Mueller that hasn't been paid yet, $44,578. And so far to date, $7,280 of that's due to them has been paid. $20,000 in 2 shots to save the library, to pay for the library, to save it for 200 days in earnest money, at which time that was done, the village also waived the $42,000 brokerage fees. So if it does go through, the village is going to pay for those too. If it doesn't, that's okay. It saves us $42,000.
Mark, can you?
Time?
Yeah, you're getting.
Okay,
close to
I'll
time.
wrap it up.
Yes, please.
Right now, the village has, in taxpayer money, wrapped up $182,737.42. We have a $150 investment from Amazon. It's already been spent. So I don't know how much else has been raised, $100,000, $200,000, but whatever that dollar amount is, from the valued taxpayers that should be driving this community in the development, and we're going to find out in the referendum, you should deduct $182,737.42 from what's been gained so far, because we've already spent this much money. And that's all I have. So I thank you for your time this evening.
Thanks, Mark. Anyone else in the room or on Zoom? All right. Moving on then, discuss and consider our meeting minutes from our village board meeting held on February 3rd and our special village board meeting held on February 25th. Any questions, comments in regards to meeting minutes as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve both minutes as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Excuse me. Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Then we move on to new business, and this is discuss and consider moving our meeting on March 17th due to the Strings concert locally to March 18th. We had discussed this last time as a board. Any questions on that? It's for the kiddos.
And it's all the grades for Strings Fest, so it's kind of unique that a lot of public and some board members would be tied up. Unless someone's objecting, I move that we move the March 17th meeting to March 18th.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second then. Again, this will be at 6:30, as we typically do. Any other, I already said it, any other discussion?
I'll just make the comment. I'll just make the comment, I completely support it, but I have a conflict right now that I will try to address. If not, I'm not going to be able to make it, but I certainly support it.
All right, thank you, Peter. Anything else? So all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Then we move on to reports from village boards, commissions, and committees. Before we get started with the library board, just kind of remind everybody to maintain quorum. This is obviously strong emotional for some folks on both sides, so I just keep that in mind as we go through this. So Cindy, library board, please.
Sure, so the library board met on Wednesday, February 19th. I think it was our shortest meeting we've ever had. We discussed programming. There's been a couple of ads in programming, and you can find all of that on our website and social media. The one thing we did go through was coming up with a rubric of how we are ranking programs.
I see Cindy's talking right now, but I don't know what about probably the library space or whatever.
Yeah, we're on library board.
Can you not hear me? Can you, hello?
Thank you, Paula. Looks like we have a bad mic.
Can you hear me now? Can someone give a thumbs up on Zoom if they can hear me?
There we go.
Okay, thanks. I'll start over. The library board met on Wednesday, February 19th.
Where's that Paul?
It puts Paul up.
Yes.
Was right by your name.
It was underneath it.
I'm like, she can hear it because there's two people away.
We added some programs. We have a new rubric that we are working on to better define how our programs are doing and how they're received by the public and whether we would do them again. We had our bills, and we are meeting in a couple of weeks, Wednesday, March 19th, where we plan on discussing a little bit more of summer programming, because you know that our programs go in kind of 3 different phases. We have like spring, and then we do summer programming. We plan all of our spring in January. We plan our summer programming right now, and then in the summer we plan our fall programming. So there are 2 other items. One is an update on the library capital campaign, and then there is a discuss and a consider library storage space within the village facility, which there's a memo attached. So I guess I'll give the update on the capital campaign. So I wanted to give kind of just a little bit of general overview, and I hope that's okay. Libraries in Wisconsin are funded through municipal and county taxes, state aid, grants, donations, and fundraising efforts. And I think capital campaigns target these fundraising initiatives specifically for library to support the large projects like new buildings or massive renovations or even technology upgrades. Not all libraries use capital campaigns. Most of them do, and they help bridge funding gaps, allowing for kind of enhanced services or improved facilities or new buildings. So our capital campaign, we based a lot of our goals and our interim goals off of the 2022 financial feasibility study. So we used the Sweeney Group a couple of years ago, and just kind of like how Mark said in public comment, it was a combination of village funding and then the Friends Group, and we ran this feasibility study. So that is what the data is based off of, is the 2022 study. The outcomes of that study, which were presented to the boards, were suggested we could raise between $1 million and $2 million. So we, as a campaign leadership group, set a minimum goal of $1 million. Capital campaigns for new buildings or even for renovations typically raise, or their goal is 20% of the new construction costs, which is about 1.6 of the $8 million. So I feel like between 1 and 2 is a very good goal, minimum being $1 million. And the rest of the group also agreed with that. Capital campaigns are typically structured over years, and this coincides with a lot of, how long construction takes. And so it takes, and they tend to go in phases. So you have a silent phase, and then you have a more active phase where you're soliciting donations from businesses and sponsors, foundations, and kind of then it trickles down to kind of everyone else and can participate in the campaign. So we spent October through right now working on establishing the capital campaign with everything contingent, obviously, on the referendum outcome. We have 28 volunteer leaders. We have 100 extraordinary women teams, which is part of the Sweeney Group's package of not only running a capital campaign, but also incorporating the 100 women into that. We've obviously worked with the legal team on making sure, and then we've all approved the recognition levels, the documents, folders, forms, policies, et cetera. After the January 13th meeting to move the question to the voters via referendum, we started actually making contacts. We've only been kind of actively working on the campaign for maybe, 5 weeks? And it's all the time starting to blur together. And so in February, we really started our in-person meetings. At the same time, we've kind of escalated and expanded our approach to be kind of a 5-tiered approach and multifactorial. Obviously, I came up with that, and I'm like, let's really make this kind of creative, and I think it's very unique and well beyond what a typical capital campaign actually does. So the structure has really been to work on grants, and this is not only going after federal congressional funding, but state funding, local funding through different types of foundations and companies. We've had really good conversations with different foundations, so the Madison Community Foundation, the Wyden Family Foundation, as well as the Miller Grove Education Foundation. We've then talked to other local businesses. We have some larger donations that have come in from them. Obviously, the nonprofit group, the Friends, have donated and also pledged their land sale. And then we have a lot of private donors that are coming in, which include the 100 Extraordinary Women. So I think we have, and I know there was an update that Heidi has pulled up, and I'm not sure if I've looked at it, so it was just sent out. I think that there's 39 out of the 100 extraordinary women that have pledged. The total that we've raised in contingent pledges right now is 525,000, so we're over halfway to our goal of $1 million. There was a press release that came out on Friday, and some of the larger, specifically when it comes to the 100 women, all of those donations will be matched by Summit Credit Union, a 1-to-1 match, which is a big accomplishment and testament to the community. That's my update.
Cindy, just to
Just,
clarify.
just gonna add one thing. I appreciate, I saw Summit's MOU come through, and it looked like regardless of the outcome of the extraordinary 100 women, that they are gonna contribute the full 100,000. So that's what you'll see on what was distributed to the board today. Otherwise, we would have just been recognizing, you know, if we had 39,000 in extraordinary woman, we'd have 39 for Summit. So I appreciate Jody and Cindy for working collaboratively on this. This is a really long process. And you know, we've been keeping up with our documentation since the implementation of this, with a large portion of the work being done by Cindy and Jody and legal.
That was my question, was the summit and the 100,000, if that is in addition to matching the extraordinary women, or if that is the amount?
It's the amount.
Okay.
But it is with, obviously, there's a lot of details that go into that one, and that it's specifically to match the 100 women, and I know that Kim Spanum is one of the 100 women. So.
And then the difference between the 525 that was in the press release and what we're seeing tonight, is that the difference between pledged and received, or just at the time it was published, or?
No, so the difference between the 525 and the 531 that was distributed primarily accounts just to timing. So what Jody and Cindy receive is like stage 1, and then it goes through the village review process. It has to go through, and I have to make sure I have all the signed forms and things together to get kind of what we would use in any type of communication. So I just wanted to point that out.
My question then, you talked about how capital campaigns go through construction and things. Do you envision, if the referendum were to pass, that capital campaign would continue?
Yeah, and I think that then it's a conversation of whether the village wants to continue funding the capital campaign, or if you want to pass that off to the Friends group. And I think it was important that the village set up the campaign and go through those policies, and especially with contingent pledges and the documentation and the recognition levels and all of the different things that obviously this board has approved. But I think it sets the campaign up for a lot of success moving forward if the referendum would pass.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this? All right. Then there's this an item about storage space.
Can we please have some storage space for the library? So obviously our programming has a lot of supplies associated with it. And right now, you know, we don't have a dedicated spot to store everything. And so it would be helpful if we could have a shelf or a temporary storage solution or some place to put all of the materials and supplies and scissors and staplers and clay and all of the things that we've started to accumulate.
So are there certain people that need access to this? Do we need to have it secure? I'm just
So, I
curious.
mean, obviously our staff person would like access to the,
Yeah.
and she's in charge of the programming, and so
Yeah.
she would just need the space. I think volunteers, or, you know, if we don't need volunteer access to it.
Okay.
And it doesn't need to be secure. This is not a huge ask, I don't think.
Do we have a space that,
I wish Kyla was here, but no, I would think a couple spaces came to mind when Cindy first came to the request. Very likely the Parks and Rec space. We could put a couple bookshelves up for storage of this space, and that way, you know, it's not a secure. It's secure to the outside, but anybody who has access to the Park and Rec space would also have access to that. There's some concerns with there's another storage area in MSB that has certain records in it. After talking it through with staff, it didn't seem like that was the best place for that specific item. And then obviously we're not gonna put it in the server room over there. So I think the best space should, I don't know, Sean, if you wanna weigh in at all, is in the Parks and Rec space, that third bay area somewhere.
Yeah, we could definitely do it there.
And Tracy can get to that spot.
She's got keys.
Yeah, okay, good.
I'll make a motion that we approve the request for library space storage in the Parks and Rec area that was discussed.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second then. Any other discussion?
Just a question. So when we say space, like how much space, is it gonna be just a couple bookshelves? Is there any requirement? Are there existing bookshelves? We need to spend money? Does it need to be a cabinet that locks? I mean, I guess I got questions that we didn't answer with that motion, no offense, but I mean, I just like to understand what that looks like.
I think just from a pure staff perspective, we would try to find if like the existing bookshelves or something that we could use. If something would need to be required to be purchased, I think that's something that we could certainly come back to or figure out.
Makes sense.
But yeah,
I think that, yeah.
Makes sense,
Tracy
yeah,
and I can
yeah.
deal with the logistics of it.
As long
It
as
needs to
Sean
come
has a good
back to
spot
the-
for it, that's good. Okay,
It won't come back on parks, it won't come back to the village board, we can handle it, I think.
Okay.
We got one of those plastic, was it Rubbermaid? I don't, yeah.
All right, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Next then, we slide over to Deer Grove Commission. Cindy or Pete?
I'll take it.
Okay.
We met on February 20th. We had a pinning ceremony for 2 new paramedics, Corey and Sarah. It was very nice. We approved the minutes from January, the January financials, the January bills. We approved the January write-offs and aging accounts. In the chief's report, we did have a couple gaps in coverage in January due to some illnesses, pretty minor. The new hire staff will be complete with training and essentially will be at the full 24/7 crews by the middle of March. There were some gaps that had to be addressed. Correspondence, we did get some nice words of thanks from a patient that was seen. Unfortunately, didn't make it, but there was some thanks for Deer Grove EMS for their services. We approved the capital replacement schedule 2025 to 2034. Obviously, in the out years, there were some questions, but we went forward because we needed to take what we knew and move forward. There are some questions in terms of things that might be required as we move forward, but that will be addressed as that rolling budget gets updated. We did then go into closed session, and we discussed a proposal for potentially providing services to the Cambridge area EMS, and we will be talking about that a little later. We did come out of closed session terminating a 2020 agreement that Deer Grove EMS had with the Cambridge area EMS, as it was outdated, and we did approve a draft proposal for potentially providing services to the Cambridge area EMS. And then we closed.
Any questions, comments? All right. Then we'll move down to the Fire District Commission. I stood in for Sarah on this one. I'll take a swing at it, and then Chris and I think Lorraine on. No, she's off, yeah. Chris can jump in too as well. So we met on February 24th, covered chief's report. Chief said that at least at that point, we're just over 1 to 2 calls per day pace. Then he talked about some equipment. The Tenor 2 had a coolant leak, and they've discovered it was the valve leaking, so they're getting that sorted. Put a plug in for their corned beef annual event on March 15th. They have it at the EMS building there. Then we discussed the openers that needed repair, the one on one of the doors, and then apparently the other 5 doors or so also have the same age of opener. So the discussion there was to look into replacing all of them because the last opener leaked fluid on one of the trucks, and they're worried about damaging paint and equipment, et cetera. So they're all over 25 years old. So I think one has been replaced, this one's going to be replaced, and then they're looking at the other ones to be replaced. Then we got an update on the lighting. There's a few lighting spots within the building that are being updated to LED. Then Chief highlighted that now the laundry room is having issues with their lights, so they're going to look at that, doing that themselves to sort that out. And then talked about fire inspection for the staff, moving from 2 inspections required per year to 1. They're looking to update the ordinances for the respective communities related to that. That would alleviate pressure on the department and those inspectors. Not to say they can't inspect more, particularly in certain circumstances where there's an issue or has been issues. But for the most part, a lot of the places they're inspecting really don't need 2 inspections per year. Then we have some little friends in the emergency building. We discussed pest control. Unfortunately, they got into some turnout gear already and chewed a little bit of those. So we're looking at getting pest control for the building. The commission was a little surprised that we didn't already have that, but we will get that in place. Authorized up to $750 to get the program started as a commission. And then set our next date of March 24th for our meeting. And I think that was it. Chris, anything else? All right. All right. I got the thumbs up from Chris. Any questions there? All right. Since I'm talking, I'll keep talking. Next up, then we have law enforcement. Again, Chris, Sarah, and Chief will keep me honest here. We met on February 25th, had a presentation, and we'll have that again tonight. I'll just run through this quick, and then we'll turn it over to the item related to updated police station. We'll have Mike do that. And then we have a discuss and consider item as well. But I'll do a quick overview, and then we'll jump into those. Again, had a presentation from Enberg related to the latest updates with the PD building. There was, at that point, a public information meeting held 2 days later, which we'll get an update, I think, on tonight. Then we discussed and considered, again, what we have tonight as far as an update to an additional mental health program, Healthy Minds, which is being used in a number of police departments and fire departments in the county. Looking at getting that in place. Civic might cover those costs. The chief was looking into that. I think it was up to $3,000 or so for that. But with everything going on with our frontline folks, the committee recommended that this board consider that as well. We have a new chaplain joining, so we're increasing the number of chaplains. They're very valuable to the department, and our current one suggested another one that he knows, so that's very good. So we got that update. We have the annual report the chief walked through, and I don't know if he wants to touch on that himself a little bit here. Went through the reports for January, nothing of note there other than the calls continue to go up. A lot of them are nothing of concern, but we have more folks around, so, and the department's more active as they go. And then next month, Chief will be out, so we'll have Lieutenant Wagner filling in for him. Anything I missed, at least on the highlights? Chris or Sarah? Okay. Let's have the PD.
Good evening. Related to the annual report, 2024 Police Department Annual Report has been published. It's on the website. You'll see our community engagement in various areas throughout it, highlights of it. Yes, calls for service increased in 2024. We understand that was going to occur and should occur as the village continues to grow. We have some positive highlights related to the personnel that were added over the last year. So you can get a glimpse of who's come on to the agency and some of their background. And again, we're an active agency. So that's the highlights. I won't bore you with it all. Now on to, we did the presentation to LEC about the police station project, and then as the president referenced, 2 days later, on the 27th, we had the second public information meeting. That was attended by approximately a dozen citizens and staff. And at that time, we pretty much had an open forum discussion, answering questions that people had about where the project was, what brought it forward, sort of the boards that were on display related to timelines and designs and things of that nature. So with that, we attempted to answer questions as best as possible, given, again, you've heard a lot of this previously, so I'm not going to regurgitate all the same information again. Again, this project has been in the works for a while and was one of the first things I was tasked with when I came here, is to look at our facilities and the needs of the facilities and how things move forward from there. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mike for a little highlight.
Thank you. So for the public meeting, we kind of ran it similar to the one we did in the first meeting. We produced 4 boards that I'll walk through here pretty quickly. But we also, with those boards, had some exterior materials that we decided upon. And we, as Chief mentioned, it was kind of an open forum right away. There was a lot of questions right away. I thought that was really good. They kind of were quite interested, and I believe that all the people at this one did not go to the last one, so that was nice to get that. But on the boards, you can see up there, the first one was kind of our standard timeline that the village put together. Kind of shows us where we're at and where we're headed, so we're still on schedule that way. So some of the information, you saw some of the information from a previous commission meeting. So we updated some of this. So on the board you see up at the screen, the site plan's the same, but we had it color rendered. We have kind of a plant list that's on there. And then we started doing some exterior imaging as well. So that shot that you see up there, if I can see it quick. Oh, you're good. Is a shot on progress, kind of looking towards the northeast of the building. You can go to the next one now. So the board, another board we had, again, we had our typical plan layout, kind of shows where our public area is, kind of shows where our secure area is. Plan hasn't changed much since you've seen it last. But we also included some interior renderings that we have. The interior renderings are still in works, but it's kind of the initial kind of image of the lobby. The top left image is in the community room looking back into the lobby. The one in the middle is in the community room looking towards the south. And the bottom picture is a shot looking down the corridor, but it's underneath the clear story, so you can kind of showing how much natural light's kind of coming in there to get some of those interior space, some natural light. Up in the right-hand corner is a picture of some of our initial finishes. Those are still underway, still going to be updated at this point, but that was our first get-go that we had on there, and we'll have a meeting here in a few weeks to update some of those as well. So this board would be new. You saw some other exterior images of these, but these are kind of updated. So the one in the upper left is a shot looking at the corner, looking back towards the building, and a similar shot down below is kind of the evening where we are actually have kind of the clear story will be lit little blue, just to give it kind of a symbol, you know, as you drive by there. Upper right-hand corner is a shot just kind of looking at the community room and looking at the open space coming out. Middle shot on the right is really down on Bonnie Drive. That shows kind of the entry into the secure area in the back, and it kind of shows the different materials that change from brick to metal panel. And then the lower right-hand corner is in the secure space looking back. So you can see how we changed the materials a little bit. We're using a little bit more CMU for more cost effective. So we're really, the design intent has been and always will, kind of really putting the brick in the faces along Bonnie Drive in progress. And then stepping down, looking at some costs towards the back. So overall, the items that we got out, I think there was a general interest. I think they liked the design that was going on. There were some questions about geothermal that we ran through. You know, individually when they broke around, there was just some questions about materials, some cost of materials, plan. So I think at the end of the day, it was all positive and it was good feedback. So I was pretty happy with the turnout and happy with the questions.
Any other questions?
Anything from any member? No? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chief, do you want to talk about the other item as long as you're there? And
As long as I'm here, if you wish to, you can.
Mike,
Thank you very much, Mike.
You free.
So the other item that's on the agenda for discuss and consider is related to the officer wellness program that the agency has had in place for the last several years. This is, as the memo explains, this is an additional component related to that program, and it deals with the mental health aspect of it. The idea behind this is personnel are dealing with a lot of different positives and negatives in life, whether at work or outside of life. That has an impact on them and the services that they're able to provide to the community. This is a resource that's available to help them navigate through some of those mental components of it. It's offered through Healthy Minds LLC, which is right here in the Madison area. They work with several other agencies within this county and outside of this county. Basically, it's implementing a wellness annual checkup is how it's referred to. And basically, officers and staff would visit with a professional counselor to speak about matters that are affecting their lives, whether work or personally related. Funding source that I'm looking to utilize is through CIVMIC. They have a grant program that would help offset a majority of the cost of this, and that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I can explain or answer any questions you may have about this as best as possible.
Chief, this is in addition to what we already have in place, correct?
This is in addition to the physical fitness component. We also, the agency, the village as a whole has an employee assistance program. This is specific in the sense, these counselors work with first responders and those type of professions. So they have that training and that expertise to help personnel work through matters. Excuse me. Again, the whole idea is it's another source or resource for them so that we're doing well for the employees and they're doing well for the community.
Chief, I had two questions. So I think it's great, but first question is, are we working with fire and EMS as far as all first responders? Because there are definitely traumatic, interactions that those individuals have as well. So are we looking at it just for the police department at this time, or have we explored that?
So every entity has to go into an agreement with Healthy Minds LLC. So we are just looking at it from police department. I do believe that this resource has been offered to both Cottage Grove Fire and Deer Grove EMS. Where they're at or what they're doing, I can't speak towards. And again, this is not just for the officers, but this is for all department personnel. My support staff, the ones that are typing these reports, that the officers are explaining what they're seeing. So again, this is for everybody's well-being.
And then the second question is, what is the annual cost of the program?
Currently, to have the entire department involved is approximately $3,000. So again, looking to CIVMIC to help, which it falls within their category of fundable item. So, and I'll just add that the agreement with Healthy Minds has been reviewed by their staff and also by our legal team to make sure that it's all in order and in place. So there's actually a contract available for me to sign if it is approved.
Any other questions?
I guess this is just a financial, so if CIVMIC doesn't cover all of it, or there's some left over, we have, is there some funds toward employee wellness that?
I will make it work.
Okay.
I will find some way
Sure.
to keep it within so that we do not go outside of budgetary.
All right. Thanks, Chief.
Anything else from anyone else?
And I would make the motion to approve the implementation of the mental health program, Healthy Minds LLC, as part of the officer wellness as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries.
Thank you,
Chief.
everyone.
If there's nothing else there, we'll go on to Parks and Rec and Forestry. Heidi.
Great, thank you. We met on Thursday, February 27th, and we discussed the survey results from our recreation survey. You can view the data. The goal was to kind of collect information about our programs, potential future programs, get feedback on how people are finding the accessibility of registration and such. So some good information and things to continue to build on, and new program ideas came out of that. We got an update on the Park Development Fund. In 2024, we added just over 111,000 to the balance. So our end of year balance was just over 748,000. Some of the Park Development Fund is restricted to certain areas, so that it has to be used to serve those developments, and then some is unrestricted to be utilized toward any of our parks to help serve the community as a whole. And then we discussed, and we're going to go into more detail on this, the Houston Park update that was part of the project plan for 2025. We also approved a kind of a MOU with Home Talent, so we know who's preparing the ball fields before Home Talent games, and they're paying for the preparation of the fields ahead of their games. We have a new sign at the Bark Park. And so that's going well, and we have the hours that we approved previously. Sean went over his report, and we'll extend another congratulations to Trista. She received Young Professional of the Year award at the WPRA conference, so we appreciate having her on the team, and lots of people recognize her excellent work. Otherwise, the new guide came out, so getting ready for summer programming. We have a wait list for the playground camp that goes after summer school. So if we hire more people, then we can take more kids off the wait list, but it's a very popular program, so kick off the summer schedule. So we can go back to, we also have the Arbor Day proclamation for the forestry side, so that's in front of us tonight. And then the Houston Park completion update. We had the bid opening, and Sean has a memo that discussed kind of the different options based on how the bids came out from the Houston Park. So you may remember we started out with just doing the playground, and then during budget time last year for this year's budget, we combined the $2024 with $2025 so we can kind of get the whole park done and not have to split it up. And we get kind of the economies of scale, get the ADA back to the ball field, and get the playground in place. So the bids came in higher than what we had budgeted. We can supplement that with, there's kind of three different options. We can supplement it with park development funds that we have. We can try to, re-engineer down to the budget that was set, or we can just kind of not award the bid and look at it in 2026. We did go over the park development funds earlier. We have a pretty healthy fund balance, so we could, since that is tagged for park improvements, we could utilize that to finish this project out. But I don't know if Cameron or Sean want to talk about that some more.
We're going to do a combo. Just because while I presented this at the Parks and Rec level, I have not presented the park developer fee fund to this village board yet. So this fund acts very similar to like a water and sewer impact fee, where as development happens, we collect funds to offset the cost of certain park projects. So certain developments, they contribute land and then pay a fee, and that's where that restricted use comes for. So anything that's not restricted, Sean and I have taken a look at it. What's the closest park that would benefit from where those dollars are coming in from? So Sean will mention or talk about that a little bit more in his memo. The village, I believe, updated these fees last in 2020 or 2021. As Heidi mentioned, sitting just about $750,000. This fund provides a tremendous amount of flexibility that a lot of communities don't have. And so because we are collecting fees, and they're never, and I'll be very clear, these will never cover the cost of the pocket parks and parks that we are required to do. But they certainly defray the cost to taking out debt for the full borrowing. I just want to highlight these funds generated almost $40,000 of interest income. So off of what we had in this fund, we were able to fund things like the engineering for the Bark Park and other improvements without even tapping into the principal balance of these funds. It is, because this is kind of a tracking thing, typically when I present this to at the park level, I do list the address as well as the development that it pertains to. So some of these will sit for an extended period of time. For example, West Lawn 4 and West Lawn 5, Those funds that are identified for the large Houston park, the 30-acre park, Hamburg Park, sorry. So those are example of funds that we would expect to sit idle here for several years, unless some of those were used for engineering dollars. Unrestricted funds and the Shady Grove funds, because Shady Grove is near completion, obviously what we're able to earn on interest doesn't keep up with the increased cost of construction. So this is typically during budget time and when we have ongoing projects, how can we find ways to put this money back into the community? Because it does us no good to hold on to these funds. We actually end up probably losing ground by not moving forward with projects. We've been collecting a very healthy balance every year. So obviously as development slows, or if development slows, we would expect to probably receive less than, the last couple of years have been just over 100,000. There are bigger developments that could bring more money in, but we don't kind of count our eggs until we have them here. So what is presented to the parks is just what the status is that we've collected. The Parks Committee has asked for what remaining lots do we have for each park development. So that will be presented at a future iteration, but is not included in the summary that was provided to the Parks Committee. And that being said, if you want to talk about your specific memos.
Okay, thanks, Cameron. Can you hear me now? Now you can hear me. Sorry. Where was I? Oh, we asked for an additional 100,000 to complete the project under the current scope. Now, smaller projects like this, we really try and hold off on spending any money on it at all. This is a small project in comparison to Bakken Park Shelter and Splash Pad or even the courts. So I really try and not spend any engineering dollars at all if we can get away with it until we absolutely have to. Figured out that the additional 100,000, that's what the number, it should fit under 100,000. Well, in January, we received the OPC, or the estimate from Strand, saying that it could be as high as 418,000. And then the project went out for bid, and the lowest bid came in at a total of 321,336. So that's where we are at today. And as Heidi mentioned, there's options here. Obviously, we could utilize 125,000 out of the Park Development Fund and complete the project now as planned. We could reduce the scope of the project, and so that would require going back to the drawing board a little bit to see what we can actually accomplish with the money that was given to us at the time. And there would be an additional consulting cost there, could be as high as $10,000. Or we could just simply not do anything and revisit this at budget time again. So that's kind of the options on where we're at. And Parks and Rec and Forestry Committee voted for the option A, which would be to utilize $125,000 out of the Park Development Fund to complete the project. Questions?
Any questions for Sean?
I'll make a motion that we approve option A as presented in the memo.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second then. Any other discussion?
Just before any discussion, this would also ultimately result in a budget amendment coming back to the next meeting. We would increase the expenses in the Park Developer Fund to support this project. So right now, we're just we're approving staff direction, and then we'll come back with the formal budget amendment.
Your job never ends.
So does that leave, so 748 is the balance, so that leaves $623,000 in that Park Development Fund?
Important to remember, we did also budget $350,000 to support Shady Grove. I believe, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, the 278 was should everything come out and nothing be added for 2025, that would be the estimate after the effect. 273, yep, perfect.
So what other items would that 273 need to cover as you look at the next year or two?
No real plans for that right now. We could choose to finish off Shady Grove. That's only going to be done. That's going to be done in stages as it sits right now, but nothing imminent that we would need to look at.
And from a budget perspective, how do we feel about 350 for the scope of what needs to be done at Shady Grove?
Feel really good about that because we're backing into that one. There are some certain things and engineering costs that have to happen, like where does the playground grow? Is it going to drain correctly? We have to have a sidewalk in there for the port in place. So once we know what those final costs are, then that will determine exactly how much we can spend on that playground. And we'll back into it at that point. If it seems like we're not getting a playground of any size or quality, then we'll have to back off from the project, and that would have to come back to the board for decision.
And just to remind, about 90,000 of the remaining 278 has to be set aside for that large park in the future. So anything that's related to West Lawn, that sits in restricted funds where they cannot be utilized for something other than the purpose that they're collected for.
So then there's 183,000 really available then?
Correct.
Okay.
I don't like doing mental math. I'm a calculator guy.
Any other discussion? All right, having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. All right, thanks, Heidi.
Yep, we did have the one other action item was the Arbor Day proclamation
yes.
as well.
We jumped and skipped right over that. Any questions on that? We do that every year, Tree City, USA.
I'll make a motion that we approve the Arbor Day proclamation as drafted.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion second. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. And then next we have reports from village officers. Rick, you're up.
So I've got two tonight. One will be more on the closed sessions. So I know the board has received some emails just about referendum signage. So we took a look at it. Basically, the sign code exempts political signs from sort of like their permitting requirements. Doesn't define political sign, but it does say one candidate sign per property. Doesn't say anything about referendum signs. So based on our interpretation of it, the referendum signs, there's not the one per property requirement. I know their emails had references to state code, but really it's village code that applies for these temporary signs. However, with that said, I think that the sign code was drafted or adopted in 2008, and there have been some Supreme Court cases that have affected how you can regulate signs and really cutting back on content of signs. So I think this might warrant a further review just to see if there are some changes we should be making to the sign code to bring it up to par with what the law changes are. So that's just a status update. I would encourage you to call or email Larry and I if you have specific questions about it, just because we don't want to start a discussion on this, because it's not an agenda item. But please feel free to call or email if you have any questions on that. And then I have an update on closed sessions, but I can get to that once we get to there. There's more of a case law update. So it's going to change how we do our bargaining closed sessions in the future.
Hot off the presses, or hot off the docket of a court case. All right. Thank you, Rick. He's still coming back. We'll move then to communication and miscellaneous business, starting off with consideration of the vouchers. Any questions there?
I did have a question. There was $2,900 charge for graphic composition, Cameron. And I'm just curious, what was that for? Was that for the mailer on the referendum? Or was that for something else? Because I thought all that stuff was going through Mueller.
Yes, so I can see Graphic Composition LLC. Miller Communication doesn't, they don't have that service, so they subcontract with that vendor. In order for us to not pay the surcharge, so they could have handled the billing and they would have billed us on their invoice. And I think it was like almost like a 10% surcharge. This Graphic Composition LLC can bill us directly. So we paid them directly to avoid paying that surcharge being billed through Miller.
Okay, so the total dollars allocated for the communication, the 44,000, would be offset
Yep.
by that? Because there is a charge of 13,686 for Mueller.
Correct.
Okay, so that they are together against that 44. Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Good question. Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, discuss and consider.
I'll make the motion to approve the vouchers as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have motion second. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? You abstain? Motion carries. Okay. Don't do that again. For those on the Zoom, that was a screech in the room. So, yeah. All right, so correspondence. Rick already mentioned that we had a few emails, 3 I counted at least, in regards to the signage ordinance. So we explained that already, that those all went to the board. I had an email from Paul G., no last name, no address, in regards to the elderberry over here on Cottage Grove Road, next to the law office, across the street from Ferris. We had a situation there last year where the tree decided to litter the sidewalk with berries. Worked with the owner of the land, got that tree trimmed back. They're coming back saying that maybe it needs a little bit more trimming. So Sean's gonna check in with the owner again and make sure that doesn't happen. So, and then I had a cryptic letter that came in the mail over the weekend. I opened it up on Sunday. Again, no address or anything, just a gentleman by the name of Robert, concerned with the trash on Bus Road. I wasn't aware of this because I don't go that way usually. So I took a look this morning, and indeed, Robert was very correct. Filled up 2 large garbage bags. This is other duties as assigned, by the way. And piled it up, and the public works staff took care of it this afternoon. So that's been taken care of. So I appreciate Robert reaching out and sending that note. I can't believe how much garbage was in those. You don't see it either because those ditches are so deep, but definitely was a lot. So that gets me set up for Lions Highway Cleanup and coming up. I do it twice a year, so I already had the stuff in the car. With that, I didn't have anything else. Anybody else has any correspondence they want to shout out? All right, upcoming community events. I mentioned the fire department already and their corned beef and cabbage event coming up on the 15th. Anything else? Anyone else? I know the Lions have a spaghetti dinner coming up here very soon. And I should remember the date, but I don't. I want to say it's next Friday. No, it's not the 15th. I think I can't remember. I should, but I don't. It's coming up. Check Facebook. That one I'm somewhat aware of. I know I'll be there working. So anybody else have anything else? All right. Then future agenda items. Anything there we need to call out?
I got one bigger one. So March now 18th, Ellers will be in attendance and they're presenting a parameter sale regarding our 2025A debt borrowing to finance budgeted 2025 capital expenditures. And then the second item that I'll bring forward is the budget amendment for Sean's park project. So Harry will be presenting virtually on the parameter sale. As a reminder, a parameter sale sets parameters on, instead of having the debt issued on a specific day of a board meeting where it could be less competitive because a lot of people are having issuances on the day, this allows us to issue debt on a day that is not common to have board meetings. So he'll provide some additional information then.
All right. Thanks, Cameron. Anything from anyone else? Otherwise, we'll move into learning the new things around open meeting laws.
Right. So a little less than 2 weeks ago, there was a new Court of Appeals decision that was published in Wisconsin that interpreted the open meetings law and specifically the bargaining exemption, so for going to closed session for bargaining purposes. And it's, I guess the only way I can describe it is sort of it turned the exemption on its head. So it's just gonna really change how we do these closed sessions when it comes to the bargaining exception specifically. So what the court essentially said is there needs to be some open session dialogue or discussion about the closed session item or the contract or what you're negotiating. And at that point, the board or government body, when they're evaluating the contract, if there are any provisions that they would like to go into closed session to, they can do so at that time. But the key language is that you feel like you have to go in there because you're required to for bargaining or negotiation strategy reasons. So, typically our process has been to make the motion right away and go into closed session. So from now on, what we'll be doing is having either an overview from myself or Matt or somebody of what the item is, talk about what the actual proposal is that's before the board. So all that will be in open session. At that point, if there are any topics or provisions about any agreement or proposal that you would like to go into closed session for, we would need to state that on the record for why we're going into closed session. And then there would be a motion, we'd follow that procedure then. So this is the approach we've sort of come up with in the short amount of time since the case came out. It could be evolving as we sort of think through this, but just it's a major sea change, I guess, in how communities do their bargaining in closed session. So for instance, we've got item number 10, I guess, John, if you want to call that one, but you don't need to do the motion, but
Nope.
Basically, so we've got the lease, so we've got, I know Rudabush is in attendance here, but, so for instance, for this one, there's a letter of intent prepared for the lease. So the terms would be a $6 per square foot lease arrangement until April of 2030 with a 3% escalator clause. So that's what the proposal would be, 3% per year. So that's what the letter would be that's sent to the property owner. And, you know, if there are, we don't have the exact lease terms or like a formal lease agreement at this point, that's just an initial proposal. So if we wanted to go into closed session to discuss any of those terms, there would need to be some, I guess, desire expressed by a board member to say we need to go into closed session to discuss this term, whether it's the lease amount, the length of the extension, or the escalator clause.
Rick, just a quick question. If there's a motion, say, to discuss the length, and then in closed session, also the term comes up, or do we need to make a motion for all three if we think all three
I
might
think
come up?
if there are concerns about any of those, or like a desire to negotiate any of those, or potentially change any of those terms, it should be expressed on the record, and then we would go into closed session to discuss those items.
Everybody clear on this now? We're gonna kind of muddle through, I think.
Mhm.
I think we should go into closed session to discuss the three items.
Okay.
And that'd be my motion.
Yeah,
And
so
I'll
then,
second that motion.
yeah, so I think John would have to read the
Oh.
language, and then, and we may want to tackle the other one too before handling that motion. So then the Deer Grove EMS contract, so obviously there's the proposal that was approved by the Deer Grove EMS Commission to provide EMS service to Cambridge area EMS district. So that is a price of $1,750 per day that Cambridge would be paying under this proposal, and would go until, or start in May and end in December. Yeah, beginning May 1st, ending December 31st of '25. So Deer Grove EMS would be responsible for staffing and providing the services, but Cambridge would be providing their equipment and the Cambridge facilities. That again is just sort of a proposal. The specifics of any agreement would have to come back here for final approval, but that's the proposal, I guess, that the village would be considering. So if there's any desire to enter into closed session to discuss any of those particular topics, the board members could express that, and we could also make a second motion for that.
Make a second motion to discuss the proposal with the conditions and the services provided.
I'll second that one too.
All right, so procedurally, John's got to read so he's got to read the text of those two items, and then we can have that motion. So he's going to make the motions, I guess, and then we'll get the seconds.
No pressure. All right, then the village board would like to go into closed session regarding the extending of a lease agreement with property at 123 East Cottage Grove Road in TID number 9, and this is specifically related to the terms that's just been discussed for that lease agreement. The Village of Cottage Grove board will enter a closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, parentheses 1, parentheses E, deliberating and negotiating the purchasing of public properties, investing in public funds, or the conducting of other specified public business whenever competitive bargaining reasons require a closed session. So we have a second?
I will second.
All right, thank you, Heidi. With that, then we get our roll call. So,
Dole,
Aye.
Gage, Kel Nelson, Murphy,
Aye.
Stoa,
Yes.
Valencia,
Aye.
and Williams.
aye. And the board also wants to go into closed session regarding the establishment terms of potential Deer Grove EMS contract services with the Village of Cambridge and adjacent municipalities. And this again is in regards to the specific terms proposed and approved by the Deer Grove Commission. So with that, the Village of Cottage Grove Board will enter a closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85.1, parentheses E, deliberating and negotiating the purchasing of public properties, investing in public funds, or conducting otherwise specified public business whenever competitive bargaining reasons require a closed session. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, thank you, Heidi. Again, roll call on this.
Williams,
Aye.
Valencia,
Aye.
Stoa,
Yes.
Murphy,
Aye.
Kel Nelson, Gage, and Dole.
All right, we're going to go into closed session and then come back out.